truth. Tucker Carlson made a claim that the NSA was spying on him, and it turned out that that was 100% accurate. No Pinocchios, Glenn Kessler. This is a true statement. And I'm bringing on Neil McCabe to break this down. But before I do, let's play a cut here just to set the scene for people. This is cut 1, Tucker Carlson last night.
So I think there are a couple of levels here. I have learned in the last week that in Washington, the fact that the federal government is reading your emails is no big deal, and you're like a nutcase for even noting it or being bothered by it. There's no expectation of privacy whatsoever. But I think, and you would know, but the federal law is pretty clear on this, if NSA captures information sent privately by an American citizen, they have to keep that citizen's identity secret unless they go through a process to, quote, unmask it. So it seems very clear to me that they did exactly what they're not allowed to do.
All right, so this whole conversation about unmasking is when I thought, you know what, I got to bring on Neil because it is a little bit confusing, and we will get into exactly how we found out that Tucker was right, thanks to Axios and Jonathan Swan. But Neil, thank you so much for joining the Grace Curley Show.
Great to be with you, Grace.
All right,
let's get after it.
Let's get after it. Thank you, Chris Cuomo. My main question, and we had a whole conversation about this earlier today. Explain to my audience, because I found this kind of hard to understand, the process of unmasking someone and why that is really at the center of this conversation about Tucker being spied on.
Okay. The United States Constitution has the Fourth Amendment, which says that you need a warrant basically to barge into people's homes or to surveil them, that Americans have rights. And if there's probable cause, law enforcement can get a warrant from a judge and then can go through your records and investigate you beyond that sort of normal privacy that we're all allowed. On the intelligence side, those laws kind of don't apply, and they certainly don't apply to non-U.S. citizens. So, for example, Grace, when you're talking to your Russian spy master at a coffee shop on Beacon Hill, you might, they're going to record and surveil that Russian, no problem. He's not a citizen, and it's a national security thing, and so they'll tape him and they'll photograph him. But because you're in that conversation, there will be incidental collection of an American citizen without a warrant. That was the whole Carter Page problem. The FBI went to the FISA court, and on page 2 of the application said, Carter Page is a Russian spy, and the FISA court authorized surveillance of Carter Page because he's an American citizen. You need a court. Well, what the NSA does, the NSA doesn't need a court for the Russian, and so what they do is they record you in the coffee shop. They have a transcript. And the transcript will say, Russian spy master said this. And then when your words are on the transcript, it'll say American female number 1. When the waiter comes to the table to take your order, it might say American male number 1, because you're not allowed to surveil American citizens. That is called masking and is a Fourth Amendment protection. What the Obama administration did is it basically loosened all of the rules and made it tremendously easier to unmask those names so that when that transcript is passed around members of the intelligence community or the political leadership of our country, they can say, wait a minute, we'd like to know who was sitting with that spy master, and they can request an unmasking.
Yeah, and Neil, I just want to stop you here for one sec, because you mentioned to me that Susan Rice used to do this all the time. She'd send out, an email, hey, I'd like to know who this is, and the person would be unmasked.
Hundreds of people.
But another thing you mentioned to me, which I found interesting, and I was talking to Howie about this, is that they would also, in the Obama administration, they made it so that this top secret information was kind of watered down to other government agencies, so that when it did leak, there was, you couldn't really pinpoint where it came from because so many different people were getting these transcripts.
Right. They made it less of a tight hold. And so they pushed it down.
Oh, we just lost Neil. Man, all right, we'll get him back. But here's what the Axios story says. Tucker Carlson sought Putin interview at time of spying claim. So basically what this proved is what Tucker had said. He had said, listen, this transcript or my emails have been spied on and they're going to be leaked to the media. And his reasoning was they want to get my show off the air, to which, Jonah Goldberg and all these blue check marks, he sounds crazy. He sounds like, the guy who says his dog tells him to murder people. They were mocking him endlessly about these claims. And what this Axios story proves is that, oh no, he was right. And so I want to read you some of this that I found interesting. First of all, even reading this Axios story where they're proving his point, they have to throw in, the smarminess, the smugness. It is unclear why Carlson or his source would think this outreach could be the basis for NSA surveillance or a motive to have his show canceled. Yeah, that's crazy talk. Politicizing, information that you get from Tucker Carlson. Who would ever want to take him off the air? Numerous American journalists have interviewed Putin in recent years, and none have faced professional repercussions. That is an interesting point made by Axios, because numerous people have interviewed Putin, and yet their information doesn't seem to get leaked. Axios submitted a request for comment to the NSA on Wednesday, asking whether the agency would also be willing to categorically deny that the NSA intercepted any of Carlson's communications in the context of monitoring somebody he was talking to in his efforts to set up an interview with Putin. And Neil, this is where I want to take this now. You pointed out something about the NSA's denial of spying on Tucker Carlson. So Tucker basically said, they're spying on me, they want to leak this, and so that they get my show in trouble and get my show taken off the air. The NSA came out with this statement. And in the statement, the left loved it. Eric Swalwell retweeted it and said, settle down, Tucker. Vox was tweeting stuff, basically making it seem like he's a crazy person. But you noticed something about that denial that was very important, and that kind of gives you a little bit of an inkling as to why they phrased it in the way they did.
Right. So one of the signals that someone is being deceptive is when they answer the question that was not asked. And so nobody asked, is Tucker Carlson an intelligence target of the NSA? What they said was he is not an intelligence target of the NSA. Well, that's not what we asked. What we asked is, are you reading his emails and listening to his phone conversations? And so they denied something they weren't accused of, which is that's systemic or a symptom of deception.
Right. And the last thing I want to hit on here, Neil, is that what you pointed out about why this is such a big deal, because I was confused about how the unmasking process worked. And what you explained to me was there's either two situations here that are both bad for Joe Biden and bad for us as the American people. Can you explain those two situations to people?
Sure. If the number one cable news talk show host in the country is contacting Putin, and the United States government is surveilling that conversation or these emails and whatnot, the president would have to be told. How do you not tell the president that we are conducting a surveillance op on Tucker Carlson? That's number one. So the president knows, and that's a big problem. Number two, the president doesn't know, and that means it's a rogue operation. And I don't know which is worse.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I think that's a good question. And lastly, Neil, because you broke the original story about John Kerry without his mask on when he was flying, I wanted to see if you saw the update. He was caught again without a mask on at Logan. Do you think that he's going to issue the same kind of apology where he basically says, if I had it off, it was only momentary?
No, he is the classic upper-class buffoon that John Cleese used to make fun of on Monty Python. And it's unbelievable to me that he's still in public life. But it is interesting or funny that as we're talking about the unmasking of Tucker Carlson, we once again are talking about the unmasking of the great John Forbes carry.
Yes, I would definitely agree. Neil McCabe, thank you so much for joining the Grace Curley Show and kind of explaining all of this unmasking. We're going to keep going with this for a while. We have another great guest coming up at 12:30. And then in the next segment, though, I'm really excited. If you have a lot of real estate questions, this is the time to ask them because we have Michael Wohl coming on at 12:20. Text in your questions to 63566. Start them with the word Curley, Curley. We'll be right back with more. This is the Grace Curley Show.
The Grace Curley Show will be right back.